A CBS News poll on impeachment just out this morning shows Americans are still split ahead of tomorrow's first public hearings. 43% in our survey think President Trump should be impeached over the Ukraine controversy. 40% say he should not, and 17% say it's just too soon to say. 73% of those who have an opinion say they've already made up their minds. Nancy Cordes is on Capitol Hill with more on this story. And Nancy, with 24 hours and counting before the hearings begin, how are the Democrats and Republicans finalizing their strategies?
Well, overnight, CBS News obtained this 18-page memo, Gayle, that details the Republican strategy going into these public hearings. They are going to argue that the evidence just doesn't prove that the president pressured Ukraine, covered up misconduct, or obstructed justice. They're going to claim that the president was simply interested in combating legitimate corruption in Ukraine, a concern that stemmed from his, quote, deep-seated, genuine, and reasonable skepticism about that country. However, according to the testimony of two diplomatic aides that was released on Monday, the president actually bought into some conspiracy theories about Ukraine, even insisting at one meeting that, quote, Ukraine tried to do him in. One aide worried that if these theories, pushed by the president's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, took hold, that the Ukrainian government was an enemy of the president, then it would be very hard to have high-level engagement with Ukraine.
And Nancy, we're also learning new details about the military aid to Ukraine that was approved by Congress but then held up. What do we know?
That's right. One of those diplomatic aides, Catherine Croft, testified that it was actually Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney at the White House at the direction of the president who placed an informal hold on that military aid this summer, right before the president's July phone call with the president of Ukraine, where he said he'd like the president of Ukraine to do him a favor. Also, in the first testimony from a Pentagon official, Laura Cooper, she's the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, testified that even the Pentagon was in the dark this summer about why the aid was being held up. She said that her understanding was that the Ukrainians were aware that the aid was being withheld, and that's important because it runs counter to the GOP argument that there was no pressure here because the Ukrainians didn't even know that this aid had been withheld. Democrats argue that this is more evidence that there was a quid pro quo, dirt on the Biden family in exchange for the resumption of millions in military aid.
And, of course, much more on all of this tomorrow. Nancy, thank you very much. CBS News will bring you complete coverage of the first public hearings in the impeachment inquiry. Norah O'Donnell will anchor special reports from Washington tomorrow and Friday here on CBS. You can also find continuous coverage on our streaming network, CBSN.